Part 3. The Neon Cage. The powder hit the back of Kyle's throat like crushed diamonds, sharp, bitter, and instant. He was parked a block away from Silas Vance's estate in Bel Air, the Porsche engine idling with a low, throaty rumble that vibrated through the steering wheel and into his palms. He leaned his head back against the headrest, waiting for the chemical elevator to take him to the penthouse. It hit. The fear, the gnawing, rat-like terror of the stolen car, the dead producer, the unpaid rent, didn't vanish. It just changed texture. It hardened. It turned from a trembling anxiety into a vibrating, crystal-clear focus. The streetlights outside sharpened, fracturing into starbursts. The silence of the car became a hum of infinite potential. Glowing for a moment, he thought, his heart hammering a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Then the glow expires. "Just stay glowing," Kyle whispered to the rearview mirror. His pupils were saucers, black holes swallowing the iris. He looked terrifying. He looked like a movie star. He put the car in gear and rolled toward the gate. Silas Vance didn't live in a glass box like Marcus Hamilton. Silas lived in a fortress. It was a brutalist nightmare of raw concrete and rusted steel, jutting out of the hillside like a bunker designed for the end of the world. The gate was solid iron, no gaps. Kyle lowered the window. A security guard with a headset and a neck as thick as a tree trunk leaned in. "Name?" "Kyle Vane," he said. The voice didn't sound like his. It was deeper, smoother. The voice of a man who owned the pavement he drove on. "I'm expected." The guard checked a tablet. He paused. He looked at the car, then back at Kyle. "Vance is waiting," the guard said. The iron gates groaned open. Kyle drove up the winding driveway, lined not with palm trees but with jagged imported cacti. It was a landscaping choice that screamed hostility. The desert outside, Kyle thought. Silas brought it inside. He parked the Targa at the front, right next to a matte gray McLaren. He got out, smoothing the wrinkles in his funeral suit. The drug made the cheap fabric feel like Italian silk. He buttoned the jacket, covering the packet in his pocket, covering the script, covering the lie. The front door was open. The noise spilled out, not the chaotic thump of Hamilton's party, but a low, droning ambient thrum. It sounded like the hum of a server room. Kyle stepped inside. The interior was cavernous, lit by strips of recessed red lighting that made everyone look like they were developing in a darkroom. The crowd was thinner here, more elite. These weren't the influencers and the wannabes. These were the decision-makers, the people who signed the checks, the people who owned the algorithm. "There he is." Cynthia materialized from the shadows. She had changed clothes. She was wearing something black and structural, looking less like an assistant and more like a weapon. "You made it," she hissed, grabbing his arm. Her grip was tight. "And you look alert." "I'm ready," Kyle said. "Good, because Silas is in a mood. The news about Marcus is everywhere. TMZ is reporting he's brain dead. The vultures are circling Kyle. We need to close this deal before the body gets cold. Brain dead." The words should have hit Kyle like a fist. Instead, they just bounced off the chemical armor he was wearing. Marcus Hamilton was gone. That meant there was no one to contradict the story. No one to say, "I never read that kid's script." "Where is he?" Kyle asked. "In the library. He's holding court. Come on." She dragged him through the room. Kyle moved with a liquid grace, the desert glitter lubricating his joints. He caught snippets of conversation as he passed, the dialogue of the damned. "So we pivot to AI-generated extras, cut the union costs by 40%. She overdosed on Tuesday, but we have enough footage to deep-fake the rest of the season." "It's not about art, darling. It's about engagement. If they aren't angry, they aren't watching. 1,000 broken angels learning how to lie." They reached a set of double doors made of heavy, dark wood. Cynthia pushed them open. The library was the only room in the house that pretended to be human. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with books that had never been opened. In the center of the room, sitting on a leather Chesterfield sofa that looked like it cost more than Kyle's life insurance policy, was Silas Vance. He was surrounded by 3 men in suits and a woman taking notes on an iPad. When he saw Kyle, he waved a hand, dismissing his court. They scattered like pigeons. "The writer," Silas said, standing up. He was shorter than he looked at lunch, but he took up more space. "The protege." "Silas," Kyle nodded. "Drink?" Silas gestured to a crystal decanter. "Water," Kyle said. His mouth was dry as dust. Silas poured himself an amber liquid and poured Kyle a glass of sparkling water. He handed it over, his eyes scanning Kyle's face, looking for cracks. "You look different than you did at lunch," Silas noted. "Sharper. You've got the hunger in your eyes. I like that. Hunger motivates." "I have the script," Kyle said, reaching into his jacket. "Ah, the Holy Grail." Silas smiled. He took the battered, coffee-stained manuscript. He weighed it in his hand, just as Jade had predicted. "Heavy, physical. I like the nostalgia of it." Silas sat back down and opened the script to a random page. He read in silence. The room was so quiet Kyle could hear the ice melting in his glass. He could hear the blood rushing in his ears. Every second felt like an hour. The drug was peaking. Kyle felt a bead of sweat trickle down his spine. What if it's garbage? What if he sees through it? Silas closed the script with a snap. "It's weird," Silas said. Kyle's stomach dropped. "It's a character study. It's supposed to be—" "I didn't say it was bad," Silas interrupted. "I said it was weird. Schizophrenic Angel? It's dark. It's indie. It's a 24 bait." "That's the goal," Kyle said. "No," Silas shook his head. "That was Marcus's goal. Marcus wanted awards. He wanted a statue to validate his existence. I don't care about statues, Kyle. I care about franchises." Silas stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark hills. "Here's the pitch," Silas said, turning back. "We take the core, the angel delusion. But we make it real. He's not crazy. He is an angel, but a dark angel, banished. He has to fight his way back to heaven through the underworld of Los Angeles. Action. CGI wings, franchise potential, video game tie-ins." Kyle stared at him. "But that defeats the whole point. The point is the mental illness, the tragedy of thinking you're special when you're just broken." "Nobody wants to watch a tragedy, Kyle," Silas said coldly. "They live in a tragedy. Look at the world. Look at this city. People are starving, burning, dying. They don't want to pay $20 to watch a kid cry in an apartment in Echo Park. They want to watch him blow shit up." Silas walked over to Kyle. He put a hand on his shoulder. It felt heavy, like a shackle. "I'm offering you a 3-picture deal. WGA max, producer credit. $500,000 for the option, right now, tonight." $500,000. The number hung in the air, glittering. It was enough to pay the rent. Enough to buy the borrowed Porsche. Enough to fly back to Wisconsin in a private jet and buy his parents a house. "But you have to let me bring in my writers to do a polish," Silas added. "We keep your name on it, of course. Story by Kyle Vane. But we need to commercialize the despair. We trade our souls for another night's spin." Kyle looked at the script on the table. It was his heart, poured onto paper for 6 months. It was the truth. And Silas wanted to gut it, stuff it with special effects, and sell it as a zombie corpse. "What would Marcus have done?" Silas asked, his voice low, mocking. "Would he have fought for the art? Or would he have taken the check?" Kyle remembered Marcus at the party. If you have to beg, you aren't ready. Marcus didn't care about the art. Marcus cared about the velvet rope. He would have taken the check, Kyle whispered. Exactly, Silas grinned. Smart kid. Silas snapped his fingers. Cynthia stepped forward with a folder. The contract, she said, handing Kyle a pen. Her eyes were pleading. Sign it. Save us both. Kyle took the pen. His hand wasn't shaking anymore. The drug had frozen his nerves. He looked at the paper. Assignment of rights. Irrevocable. He signed. Welcome to the family, Silas said. Now go enjoy the party. You're a made man. Kyle stumbled out of the library. He felt light, weightless. He also felt like he was going to vomit. He had sold it. He had sold Echo Park. He was rich. He was successful. He was a fraud. He needed another bump. He navigated toward the bathroom. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring the handshakes, the smiles that looked like snarls. He found a powder room with black marble sinks and locked the door. He took out the packet. He laid out a line on the marble. He leaned down. Sniff. He stared at himself in the mirror. His eyes were wild. His skin was pale. Success, he told his reflection. This is what it looks like. His phone buzzed. Ben, cops are here. They're asking about the car. Where are you? Kyle froze. The high turned instantly into a cold, jagged paranoia. Ben. My cousin reported it stolen an hour ago. He tracked the GPS. They know you're in Bel Air. The GPS. Of course, the $140,000 car had a tracker. Kyle stared at the phone. The walls of the bathroom seemed to close in. The desert glitter wasn't making him glow anymore. It was burning him alive. He flushed the rest of the packet down the toilet. A useless gesture. The sin was already in his blood. He unlocked the door and stepped out. He had to leave. He had to get to the car before the cops arrived. If he could just get it out of the driveway, dump it somewhere, claim he panicked. He moved fast, cutting through the living room. Kyle, Cynthia called out. Where are you going? Silas wants to introduce you to... I have to move the car, Kyle said, not stopping, blocking the valet. The valet can move it. No, Kyle snapped, too loud. People turned to look. The clutch is tricky. I'll be right back. He pushed past her. He burst out the front door into the cool night air. The driveway was lit up, not by the tasteful landscape lighting, but by the flashing red and blue of a police cruiser. 2 officers were standing by the Porsche. They were shining flashlights into the interior. Kyle skidded to a halt in the shadow of a cactus. His heart stopped. Check the VIN, one officer said. It matches, the other said. This is the one. Stolen out of West Hollywood. Kyle stepped back. He couldn't go to the car. If he went to the car, it was over. Grand theft auto. Possession of narcotics. In his system. Fraud. He looked back at the house. The music thumped. The red light bled out of the windows. Inside, he was a genius with a $500,000 deal. Outside, he was a felon. Show up late, leave early. He couldn't go back inside. They would come in looking for the driver. Silas would hand him over without blinking. Silas would shred the contract before the handcuffs clicked. He was trapped. Kyle looked at the landscaping. The darkness beyond the driveway. The canyon dropped off steeply into the brush. If he could get down the hill, get to the road below, call an Uber. He took a step into the dirt. His expensive dress shoes slid on the loose gravel. Hey! A voice from the driveway. Kyle froze. You! The officer shined the flashlight beam right into Kyle's face. Is this your vehicle? Kyle raised his hand to block the light. He was blinded, exposed. Run, the drug whispered in his ear. Run. And he did. He didn't run toward the cops. He didn't run toward the house. He turned and sprinted into the dark, diving over the retaining wall and plunging into the canyon. He tumbled through the sagebrush and the dust. Branches tore at his suit. The paper-thin crown was ripped away. He rolled, crashed, and slid down the steep embankment, the darkness swallowing him whole. He came to a stop at the bottom of a ravine, gasping for air, covered in dirt. His suit was ruined. His face was bleeding. Above him, far up the hill, he could see the glow of Silas Vance's fortress. He could hear the faint thump of the base. He was in the desert now. The real desert. The one that sat just outside the frame of the camera. He reached into his pocket. The check? No, he hadn't gotten the check yet. The contract? He patted his jacket. The inside pocket. The signed contract was gone. It must have fallen out during the fall. He patted the other pocket. The car keys. He still had the keys to the Porsche 911 Targa. The keys to a car that was currently being impounded by the LAPD. Kyle sat in the dirt and laughed. It was a manic, broken sound. He was alone in the dark. He had no car. He had no script. Silas had the only copy. He had no contract. He had no way home. His phone buzzed again. 1% battery, one new message. Not from Ben. Not from Cynthia. It was a DM from an unknown account. Unknown. I saw the news. Hamilton is dead. Did you get what you wanted? It was Jade. Kyle typed with trembling fingers. Kyle, I lost everything. The phone died. The screen went black. Kyle looked up at the sky. The stars were there, finally visible away from the direct glare of the house lights. But Jade was right. They looked fake. 1,000 broken angels. He stood up. His ankles screamed in pain. He started to limp down the ravine toward the distant hum of the freeway. He was walking, just like Jade. We're dancing in a drought, thirsty hearts on fire. But the fire was out, and the thirst was the only thing left. End of part 3.